Good morning. I want to try to get through this as quick as I can. I got a lot of information to throw out there, a lot of opinions, but I've got kiddo running around, so as usual, I'm sure I'll have to pause this multiple times and help him out with whatever predicament he gets himself into. So I'm going to briefly mention, as far as horsemanship goes, we're all on our own journeys. We're all learning things at a different pace, different timing, different backgrounds and experiences, exposures. So we're all going to have varying opinions, and that's okay. I don't expect everyone to take what I say as truth, and I don't expect anyone else to be on the pedestal that we just believe everything that they say as well. But I'd like to be able to open this opportunity to have healthy discourse and to be able to debate respectfully, because that's something that is lacking in the horse world in general. It's a lot of heated and strong opinions out there. So, like I said, our opinions are formed by different exposures, experiences, and education. So, depending on who and where you get your information, you're going to have different thoughts and opinions on things like tack and training methods. So, the tough thing is, how do we determine what's true, what's fact, and what's not? It's actually pretty murky because there's a lot of different studies and things that are, thankfully we're getting the technology to be able to do more in-depth studies, but who's funding the study, who's backing these things, who's endorsing it, who's going to publish it. There's a lot of money, pride, and ego in the horse industry, so it's very difficult to get straight facts, and it's probably even more difficult to distribute them and have them not smeared and lied about. So there are studies out there that show what types of tack cause tremendous amount of stress and cortisol levels in horses, but they're a little bit hard to come by sometimes, and you know how studies are. Sometimes they're a little bit loosely conducted, and other times they're overly criticized. So it's hard for us to come down to what is straight truth in the horse world. But we're getting there. I think we've got more people that'll be able to push these things forward and get better equipment recommendations in the future for our sports. So, who do we rely on for our information? Usually we will depend on experts, air quotes. Experts can call themselves whatever they want. Any random bum off the street can walk in here today and tell you that he's a farrier, horse trainer, anything. I mean, you can make up titles for yourself, and really there's not a lot of standards to corral these sorts of people. So it's very risky out there, but you can get your information unknowingly from any nincompoop. So a lot of people will depend on champions and winners, and that's kind of the route I took as a kid. I started lessons at 9 years old, and I looked up to and idolized a lot of winners and high up riders because frankly, if they're winning, they must know what they're doing. So I really believe that the competitions prove they're capable and that they're knowledgeable and skillful. And while that can be the case, and I believe a lot of sports started out very pure in that way, that the competition was meant to be a way to prove who's got what it takes to win and who's got the skill and who's got the knowledge. And a lot of these sports, they kept horsemanship first. That was how they were founded, was the humane and ethical treatment of the animals. But like most things, when money is introduced, there is corruption. Pride and ego, again, is a big issue. So the trainers and champions at the top, I don't necessarily take them to be the best advisors anymore, because I've seen a lot of the champions, a lot of the winners, a lot of the big time high-end people, they will do whatever it takes to win. They don't care what the cost is. So I now look at people at the top with a little bit of skepticism, because I wonder, there's a whole lot of good quality riders and competitors that may be in the middle to upper range in every sport. But the people at the very top may just be the cheaters. They may be the ones who are taking advantage of their horses, doing whatever possible to win. So I just take everything they say with a grain of salt. I question everything, books, materials, everything. I used to be quite well read and ask a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions. I drove my instructors crazy. They told me to bug off a lot of the time because I would just drive them nuts. I read lots of books, anything I could get my hands on. So even as a young kid, I was very, very knowledgeable. The problem is you can have a lot of knowledge but not have the wisdom and experience to apply it properly and to discern what is and isn't worth doing. So I knew my tack, I knew the purposes, and I took a lot of it as gospel truth just right off the bat because so many sources agreed that this is the way we do things in the horse world. So with experience now, I'm learning to question everything, like everything. Even my favorite trainers, I love, I love Caparelli. He's fantastic. I love Clinton Anderson's got some good methods. I don't always agree with his application, but I love John Lyons. There's several really fantastic horsemen out there, just to give a few examples. But I still question everything they say. And if it doesn't quite make sense to me, I will test it and try it and think about it and chew on it and digest it for a while until I'm certain that at this point in time I agree with it. And even still, I'm hoping in future I will continue to evolve as a horseman, and I will discover more and more things that I do not like, I don't agree with, or things that I think we could do better on. That's kind of the whole goal. So I never made any intentional, willful mistakes. It's not like I woke up and said, I want to abuse my horse today. But, I made a lot of ignorant mistakes, tack choices that I do not appreciate. I've made a lot of tack mistakes, a lot of training mistakes. I've shared some of those with you guys already. If you've seen any of my earlier videos, I showed I was riding in a figure 8 noseband. No idea why. Somebody must have told me it would be helpful. Don't know. I was a kid. I had no idea what I was doing. A lot of saddles that didn't fit. Just stuff like that. Bits I wouldn't use. But once you know better, you're going to do better. I think most riders out there like me, they're trying hard. They want to do well by their horses, and they're just not educated or experienced enough to realize what mistakes they're making yet. And that's fine. I'm not going to hate on anybody because you post a photo of your horse using a piece of tack I disagree with. I think we're all doing the best we can. Really, the majority of us are. We're trying. We're just unintentionally ignorant. So those who are well-meaning and well-read, you're in my good graces. We all make mistakes, right? But there are a handful of people, probably a lot more than I realize, that are willfully ignorant. And I don't necessarily want to call these guys out and hate on them right now because most of these people are just doing what's normal within their sport. And maybe they kind of feel a little uneasy about some aspects of what they do, or the practices that are normal, the tack that's normal. But they just don't feel like they have maybe the experience or the knowledge to question it or challenge it. And I understand that. I've been there. I've been at competitions where, as a young kid, I was sitting there going, this doesn't feel quite right. But who am I to say anything? So I want to challenge you guys. If you do see something that doesn't quite sit right with you, question it, dig into it. Don't just shrug it off and hope that somebody else is going to take care of it. We're finding out that the organizations a lot of them are corrupt. So there's not often going to be an authority that will step in and prevent abuse or help out in a situation. It's often down to individuals like you and me that have to say, this is not okay. We're going to have to stop it. It's unfortunately, it's on our shoulders. So finally, there are abusive people. There are intentionally abusive, vindictive, terrible people out there. People are evil. We're just broken. That's the way we are. So there are a handful of people, especially visible on the internet, who just wake up every day and seem to think, how can I twist this method or this piece of equipment? How can I invent something even more cruel? How can I confuse people, mislead them into harming their horses? I do believe there are some people out there that just genuinely are broken enough to want to do that sort of thing. So we have to be very careful, very wary of that sort of mentality. But I don't think the majority of people who do things wrong are of that small subcategory of wicked people. So I'm not out here calling people, all just horse abusers and sadists and stuff. That's not where I'm going. So our equipment choices are based on what we see and what we learn and what's normal within our sports and within, media. And So there's patterns that are common all throughout the horse world. One of those, and you've probably seen this, maybe have promoted it. I'm guilty of it. I've done it. I've been there. Okay, so I'm not judging anybody here. But here's a common scenario. Horse won't stop. You're riding, your horse won't stop. Your friend's riding, their horse won't stop. The immediate first response to that you'll get everybody coming out of the woodwork is get a stronger bit. Try a twisted bit. Try a leverage bit. Use a chain curb strap instead of a leather one. It's increased the severity of the bit. That's the first thing people automatically go to. If the horse is gaping their mouth open trying to avoid the bit, okay, add a noseband, a flash or a figure eight or some kind of noseband. Tighten the cavesson down. Use a noseband. That's the very next suggestion. Well, what if your horse is throwing their head too high? They're trying to get away from the bit. They're maybe rearing, maybe popping their nose up in the air, crow hopping. People will start telling you, use a martingale, use a tie down, pull the head down. Don't allow the horse to get their head up so high. If your horse is rearing, you tighten that tie down. That seems to be a common theme. If your horse won't go, use a whip, spurs. So I don't know if you can quite pick this out, but what I'm getting at is that when we have a problem with the horse, our innate human nature says add something to it. It's a quick fix, right? Band-aid solution. If the horse won't stop, stronger bit. The horse is raising its head, martingale. The horse is opening his mouth to avoid the bit in the martingale, noseband. It's just human nature to want to do band-aid quick fixes. Okay, so that's natural. It's what we do. We're direct line thinkers. I don't necessarily know if this is true, but I see this quote a lot from supposedly Albert Einstein. He gets misquoted for a lot of things. I don't really know why we do that. I guess to make ourselves sound smart. But here I go. Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old well enough for them to understand it, you don't understand it yourself. I don't have a 6-year-old handy, but I have an 8-year-old. And she's very smart, but not educated horse-wise. She's not familiar with tack. She's not a rider. She doesn't know the normal behaviors in the horse world at all. So she's a good test subject to kind of throw some ideas at. So what I did was I very plainly, in a non-biased sort of way, just casually asked her, have you ever heard of someone using a noseband on a horse? And she said, no. What's that? So I said, well, normally, a bridle might have different types of parts and pieces, and we get to choose which ones we want to use. But one of the pieces you can choose to put on a bridle is a noseband that you can tighten down. And it keeps the horse from opening its mouth. And her face went. And I was looking at her in the mirror of our car while I'm driving, and I thought, well, that's an apt expression. Shock and confusion. She was a little bit aghast with that. And I said, so, what purpose do you think that might serve you? If you were going to ride Oakley, and I said, let's put a tighter noseband on and tighten it down a little bit, she can't open her mouth. How would that help you? And she just was shocked. She said, I don't know. I can't think of any reason why I would want to use that. And I said, can you think of a reason why you might not want to use it? And she said, yeah, it sounds like it would hurt. What if Oakley tried to open her mouth? Wouldn't that hurt? She would probably get hurt and then panic. And then she would probably buck. For a non-horse person, I thought that was a very appropriate and intelligent answer. She doesn't know enough about horse psychology to understand that pain always elicits panicky responses from our horses. It causes them to react. But she knows innately, it makes sense. It's common sense that if you cause your horse pain, they're going to react. I'm not so sure a noseband would make Oakley buck, but you get the picture. That's what she was concerned about. So she immediately picked out that there were really not any pros that she could think of just off the top of her head, but there were some cons to using a tighter noseband. So, let's see here, I'm going over notes. I apologize. It tries to keep me from rambling so badly because we all know I can do that. Then I told her the reason that riders use a noseband, and if you just Google what's the purpose of a figure eight or a flash or whatever, I'm going to share these screenshots of my Google answers in the comments if you'd like to see that yourself. Please feel free to do your own research, look in books, whatever. I'm very well read, and the answers are usually very consistent. The reason that you would use a noseband is to prevent the horse from opening their mouth, gaping, jaw crossing, putting the tongue over the bit, and otherwise evasive behaviors that render the bit ineffective. So I told her that in a little bit simpler, easier terms. Keeps the horse from opening its mouth so that you can't pull on the reins and use the bit properly. And that only bugged her eyes out further. So we had a light conversation about why I'm against them at that point, but that's the first she's ever heard of nosebands. So nowadays, with my education and my experiences pointing to maybe don't trust everything you read and don't trust everything that's accepted as common fact, I now ask why a lot. And not just the surface level why. I ask why, and then I follow it up with a, well, why is that? And then I follow that up with a, why is that? And if you keep asking why long enough, you will actually get to the root of the issue. So, for instance, why do we use a flash, a figure eight, a drop, noseband, those sorts of things? It's to prevent opening the mouth. Well, I want to ask you, just as a side note, how many horses out running around in the pasture with no tack on have a problem with sticking their tongue out the side of their mouth, crossing their jaws, or opening their mouth? Oh, wait. How many horses are so chronically opening their mouths that we have to put nosebands on them in the pasture? I've never seen one. So, just a thought. Maybe it's a rider issue. Maybe it's a human issue. Maybe we are causing these issues rather than the horse. It's not a horse issue. Oftentimes you'll hear someone say, well, my horse rears. My horse has a kicking or a bucking or a biting problem. And I want to pause and say, why? Does your horse do these behaviors in the pasture so severely that it's a problem when you're not in the pasture with them? They're in the pasture with their buddies or alone, whatever. Maybe you have an aggressive horse that attacks every other horse in the pasture. That's possible, right? So that's why I'm asking, why? Why is the horse doing that? But if the horse is having zero problems, turned out in a field with his buddies, and then you come along and all of a sudden the problems start coming up, I want to challenge you and say, that's not a horse problem, that's a human problem. The human is the common denominator. When we walk into that pasture, when we start putting equipment on the horse and expecting things of the horse, that's when the problems show up. So, we're not going to call it a horse problem. It might be a tack problem though. If that explanation I gave my daughter about why we use nosebands, if it causes her to kind of raise her eyebrows, it's probably not a good explanation, but yet it's the common one. We always are consulting the experts and asking them, why do you do this, why do you do that, but we don't follow through enough. So here's an example. I'm going to kind of work on how to use the question why to get to the bottom of some issues. So again, here's an example. I say, my horse has problem X. Human nature says, okay, here's solution Y. A horse opening its mouth, put a noseband on. It's that simple. It's a quick fix. It's a Band-Aid. We are actually just seeing what we call the issue. It's just a symptom of the issue, right? It's not really the root of the issue. So let's ask why. Why is the horse gaping its mouth and raising its head? Well, if you ask that question to a rider who's having problems, they might say, well, he's been hard to stop, so I'm having to pull on the reins. Okay, well, if you stop right there, you'd say, get a stronger bit and put a noseband on. Keep asking why, dig deeper. So why are you pulling on the reins? Well, the horse is too strong, in air quotes. The horse is too hot, too strong, too much, too. It's too something, right? So we're blaming the horse again. Well, I want to challenge that and say I don't like too strong. What about your horse is dull? What about your horse is unresponsive? Okay, this is where I'm going to rub a lot of people wrong and I'm going to tick a lot of people off. And I'm not here to do that, but I want to challenge you to think, hi buddy, what could be wrong with the situation or the training that is causing the horse to behave this way? So why? Why is the horse dull and unresponsive? Huh? Is the horse underprepared? Is the horse overfaced? Is the horse being challenged with, too much of an event, too much excitement too early, that the horse doesn't have the emotional control, the education to handle it? Why is the horse underprepared, overfaced, ridden in a manner that dulls him, like heavy hands? Unskilled hands can create a dull horse. Poorly timed hands, not releasing when you ought to release. using a constant heavy pressure or even just a light pressure, but with no release. That'll create a dull horse. You dropped your ball. So if you keep asking this trail of why is this horse dull? Why is this horse so heavy in the hands? You'll eventually get down to either the rider needs training or the horse needs education or both. And frankly, that's a fixable problem. We can work on that. Riders can improve. Horses can be trained. There are solutions. The problem is those solutions take more time and often more effort at the very front, on the onset. They take more effort to cure. We would rather just say, I don't want to put in the effort, I don't want to put in the work. Let's just do a stronger bit. Let's do a stronger, nose band, whatever it takes, a martingale, and then we'll just deal with it, right? That sounds great until you compound issues, right? So you solve every horse problem, again, in quotes, with a quick fix or a band-aid solution. You'll create more pain, frustration, resistance, and you'll multiply the issues that you're having. I promise you this. So I'm not going to tell you that if you take, a young rider to an event, their 4-H show or whatever, and they've been riding all year in a certain set of tack and it's gone well, but you get to the show and the horse is just a little more on edge and things are just a little bit more challenging. I'm not going to tell you that in that moment it's, the worst thing ever to use a slightly stronger bit or give the kid a crop or whatever. You got to stay safe and get through this show, right? So short-term solution, okay, do what you need to do to be safe and successful within reason. But I'm going to tell you that long-term, that bit's not going to fix your problem. That whip's not going to fix your problem. You need to address the root issue. Come here, buddy. So, please ask yourself why rather than compounding the problems. Get to the root of what's really going on. Get to the bottom of the issue. Nearly every time you'll find that there is an education-related solution. Really? There's an education-related solution rather than using force, mechanical equipment, fear, or coercion tactics. Of course, pain can be part of the issue as well. So please always address your vet, farrier, experts that can help you. Why are we singing? Why are we singing? Address any pain issues. Look for lameness. Give that a serious consideration before you start just training your horse or beating yourself up as a rider. If you have an issue pop up, it may be that your horse isn't feeling well. There really is a huge amount of things that can cause pain. And those can be, even bigger than training issues. So you need to rule pain out first before you tackle any training issues. But please don't just throw a bit or a noseband on your horse and hope that it fixes everything. Give me just a minute. We're going to take care of this guy. Apologize for that. So once we've ruled out pain, then we can address training or education issues for the horse and the rider. And I promise you, you can soften up even the hardest mouth and you can get a more responsive horse out of anything, no matter the background or the experience. So I've come to find that a harsher tack adjustment is never the solution. It's just not long-term. It might get you through in a quick pinch, but it's never a long-term solution. My favorite quote from Pat Pirelli, and I use it all the time, is take the time it takes, because then it takes less time. So I want to encourage you to, even though it might seem like a daunting task to face a training issue, take the time it takes up front, because it will, long term, it will be so much faster. You will get to your goals more efficiently if you just take the time it takes. Do the mental work to avoid the mindless physical torture. Put in the reps and the effort to train yourself and your horse rather than resort to the Band-Aid fixes. As a final note, some equipment may be kind of like a gray area for a lot of us. We might be able to kind of agree to disagree on what's reasonable and what's not. A lot of that's kind of like a horse-by-horse situation. I'm not going to write off all tack, and I'm not going to write off a lot of it, even though maybe some of it I don't personally care for. Like bits. I'm not going to tell you every horse should be ridden bitless. I'm not going to tell you every rider should ride bitless. That's kind of a gray area. Take that as you can, learn what you can, do what you think is best in the moment for yourself and your horse. But there's some tack that's just flat out evil. And I will only call out 2 pieces right now because the world is too vast for me to name everything that I hate. But I'm going to tell you right now that Spanish nosebands, I think we can all agree on that. If you've never seen one, Google it. There's a picture in the comment down below. I'll share some of those pictures. But a Spanish noseband is literally a piece of metal that is serrated and placed against the bridge of the horse's nose, usually quite low, even at the end of the nasal bone. And it literally bites in to the horse's face. So we can all agree that's evil. Don't use that. That's abusive. A much more controversial hot take. I don't like dropped nosebands either. Flash nosebands suck, but I'm not going to write them off. But crank nosebands. Do not use crank nosebands. They are evil. They are evil. They place so much pressure. You wrap that sucker around the horse's nose. Use leverage to wrap it up around the horse's nose even tighter. And then you can literally crank on it. Don't use crank nosebands. They are wicked and abusive. There's just no excuse for that. If you think you need that, I would love to talk with you. Honestly. Like, it's not necessary. Whips, bits, and spurs, like, we can debate those all day. And I'm happy to have that kind of debate. I think a lot of things are used incorrectly, but with the right use, I don't inherently think they're evil. I don't think they're wrong. So, yeah, I won't condemn those. Make sure I'm not missing anything else here. I'll never tell anybody that any sort of tight noseband designed to hurt the horse or clamp their mouth shut is acceptable. I'm just not ever going to agree with anyone on that. I think that any tight equipment can be a problem, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me and to Declan making all of his babbles and racket. If you have any questions or want to share your opinions, I would appreciate seeing that in the comments. Send me a message. I'm on Facebook and stuff too, so send me a message. I'd love to talk. Let's keep it respectful, please, with each other. Take it out on me if you want. I don't care, but let's be nice to each other. I want to see people being able to share their opinions in a way that's healthy and not hateful, because in the end we need to be trying to serve the horse, not our own egos. I'm tired of egos in the horse world. None of us knows it all. Not even you. You don't know it all, do you? No. So thank you all for listening, and let's talk soon. Thanks.